and I'm going to go
Okay.
um, off the microphone as well.
Okay, Manu, go for it. And when I see Facebook Live, I'll start. Hi, Asha. How you doing?
Hi, fine, thank you. Good morning. Early
Good.
morning.
Yeah. Good morning. Good evening here. I'm in Los Angeles, but yes. Good morning. Good evening. Yes. Welcome, everybody. And welcome everyone on Facebook. We're just going to give it a second here, and I am going to introduce what we're going to be discussing today and sharing. Let's see. Hi, everyone. Leah, Sunny, and Mary, David. So today, we have a very special day. Every Manu transmission is special. Today is the human miracle, the 12 building blocks, and it's number 11 of 52 in this series. And we're going to be talking about emotional well-being, and this is part 3. Suppress or express is the topic. So Manu is going to share 7 hacks to manage the dichotomy to suppress or express your emotional state. She also is going to share the trajectory of suppression and where that takes you, and how you can navigate yourself out of this trajectory to enter the realm of freedom and flow, expressing your emotions. You also understand what impact this has on your life. You get to understand how you can leverage this very unique perspective on emotional well-being to transform your quality of life. So that's what we're up to today. And it's a really wonderful one. I mean, how we balance that emotional state and what we do with our emotions so that we can really be free to express ourselves and move forward in our lives. So that's what we're up to today. And I'm going to see if Minu is back online. Minu, are you there?
I'm here.
Yes, wonderful.
Yes.
So, yeah, I was just explaining how this is all about our emotional state and our emotional well-being. And it's going to be wonderful to see how expression and suppression and expression, comes about and how we can use that. So anyway.
Yes. It's very interesting, right? How like overexpression can also be suppression. But let's
Yeah.
see. This series is a transmission, and they are your like the archetype of the sort of questions that arise for all the audiences. So if you feel you need to ask a question, just button, it's fine. It is and then towards the end we can have a bit of a dialogue around it as well. Okay.
Yes, please feel free to interact on chat, and let's get any questions answered as we go.
Yeah, and so you look out for the chat. I'll just stay in the mode of transmission.
Wonderful. Good. Okay.
Right. Right. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is the fourth in the in the emotional well-being set. And it's all about emotional well-being. It's all in the context of the 12 building blocks of the human miracle. And okay. And I like that what I received was to share the 7 hacks of emotional well-being. And whilst the context is suppress and express and really navigating your way around this dichotomy, I thought the best thing to do is to, really begin by looking at, what's the dictionary meaning of suppress? So suppress, the dictionary meaning, as I saw it, is it means to be forcibly put an end to something. That is suppress. Forcibly put an end to something. And express is to make known the opinions or feelings of oneself. Quite a different, very different, and literally polar opposites as we see it. And when it comes to emotions, literally it is these two that play out in terms of how we show up with our emotions. And we can simply be with our emotions, and that is a form, and continue to express ourselves versus expressing the emotion. And that's what the 7 hacks of emotional well-being are really about, where regardless of whatever it is that you may be emoting or that you may be experiencing in the way of emotions, at every stage, where the way you show up is an expression of the whole and completeness of you. That's what this is really about. That's the bottom line, hence, and by doing that, you land in your presence, and you don't have the juxtaposition of managing this dichotomy, whether I suppress what I'm saying or do I really express what I'm saying. Express is, letting your opinions be known, and your opinions is fine, but expressing emotions like emotion, anger, you can certainly express, this actually causes a buildup of anger in me. You're not expressing your emotion of anger. You're actually expressing your state of being. So the first hack really is related to this. And the first hack is, it's your choice. We are born with choice. We are born with choice, and you're always choosing. Whether or not you choose to make no choice, whether or not you choose to say that, I had to do this, I needed to do this. Well, whatever you choose is your choice. So once you really get that, you'll immediately step away from this position of, balancing yourself in whether you express or suppress, or in this navigating this crazy space of this of suppression. I think it's useful to understand at this point that if you choose suppress, what's the lay of the land that you're going into? And just as a reminder, suppress, like I said, is forcibly putting an end to. If you forcibly put an end to something, whatever it may be, here what we're doing is emotion is all about feelings. You're forcibly putting an end to your emotions, how you're feeling. Now, I did that for years and years until I could feel no more. I just, so as a result, I didn't feel upset or angry. People thought I was very balanced all the time, but I actually didn't feel it. And it also meant that I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel connected to anything either. But that came from years of putting an end to, allowing myself to feel, because I thought if I allowed myself to feel, somehow I would become weak, and it would stop me from the growth that I wanted to achieve in my life. And I would say, it began, I think, at a very young age and became very pronounced when I felt that experience of the first time and many of you know the story of me marrying my childhood sweetheart. And then from the first year of marriage, which was 7.5 years after we'd met, he started hitting me. And then it continued for 10 years. And at that point, it was like, I'm not going back home. I'm not going to just walk away from this marriage. I've chosen this. I didn't feel, he did somehow manage to convince me that I was making him do this. And I felt guilty about it. And I didn't like that feeling. Then I felt regret about it, that, I could have chosen something different. Didn't like that feeling either. So I just kept suppressing it, kept putting an end to those feelings. I wasn't putting an end to those feelings. I was simply loading my human body with the weight of attempting to put an end to something that was so anchored. So the energy signatures of those emotions was quite solidly anchored in my field. So the trajectory of suppression is a weight that you start carrying. And I physically became overweight. It started showing me on my being physically. And it was like layers of blankets of this weight. And okay, the physical body is going to manifest those physically. So it looked very physical. And then, of course, the physical body had to adjust. My mental thinking, on the other hand, was whatever can happen to me, nothing is going to stop my optimism. So the mental state was actually pretty good. But it also meant that I lost that beautiful gift of empathy, putting myself in other people's position. Because to me, it was like, if I can do this, if I can tolerate this nonsense and still keep going, so can everybody else. And if they don't, I don't have any sympathy for that. But actually, what that was doing was it was damaging my beautiful connectedness. And as many of you here have done my body of work on your source mastery, living from source, it was disconnecting me from that mastery, which is my unique gift with which I was born on this planet, which is to leave people truly, madly, deeply in love with themselves. And I was actually really suppressing that. Now, I didn't feel at that point, I felt I was strong. And I'm going to talk about other hacks, but the trajectory of suppression is you find different ways of giving you strength. So I went for something that never argued with me and always gave me comfort, no matter what, whatever situation I was in, and that was food. And therefore, food became my addiction. And that had a whole variety of other connotations associated with it. You know, I mean, I just think about my cells. They must be like going so crazy. Like disconnection of each of my organs from their originating intent started to take place, resulting in a disconnection from my disconnection with my own spirit, and therefore a disconnection from what it is that I truly want. All began with me choosing the trajectory of suppression of my emotions. Expression of your emotions sometimes can also be suppressive. The idea is not about expressing your emotions or expressing how you feel. It is expressing you, your presence, your way of being in any situation. And really, when you choose to do that, you can feel whatever you want. You don't suppress it, you acknowledge it for yourself. And you still choose to be the expression of you in your whole and complete state. And that keeps you centered, keeps you, really owning, acknowledging, receiving that gift of your presence.
Minu, I have a question about expression.
Yes.
When you talk about expression, like there's the expression, outward expression, and there's also the inward acknowledgement expression where you don't even have to speak. Is that something that you can
Yes.
talk?
So what I'm saying here is that inward expression is a good one, which is acknowledgement. Like that is one of the hacks as well, where you acknowledge how you feel. It is important to acknowledge how you feel. If somebody said to me, just stop regretting, let's move forward, I would say, I don't regret, but my God, that was a predominant underlying basic emotion in most of my emotional reactions was regret. But because I never acknowledged it, there would be a reaction, and people would often say, people who are very close to me would often say, well, we just don't know, how you're feeling about it. We had no idea that we'd said something that had caused this upset because I wouldn't express, and then there might be an explosion. And that was very few and far between. But when the explosion took place, it was big. I never raised my voice, but it was like very certain. I would go ice cold, the ice maiden treatment that we women sometimes do very effectively. But that was only because I was not acknowledging it. And that is the expression within. Now, when you acknowledge it, you're expressing you're expressing what is the emotion you're expressing? You're expressing an emotion of honoring your choices, where you're at. That's the emotion that you are honoring. So as a result, whatever the frustration or anger or upset or rejection, whatever the emotional situation may be, it sort of starts to, really dissolve. But if you don't do that there, then it is all you have is the emotion. This phrase, he carries his emotion up his sleeve. It's so true. That also is suppression. Like my dad sometimes would say very hurtful things to people. He says, well, I'm very direct, that's just who I am. But that really, he wasn't saying, people would just shut down completely in front of him because they just didn't know what if he reacts in a way that was unpredictable. So understand that it's expression of your emotion doesn't make any sense. Expression is the expression of your being, of your presence in the face of whatever is occurring. That is what gives you the freedom. That's why it's a hack for emotional well-being. But a very important question to ask, allowed me to elaborate in this way.
Thank you.
So let's look at the second hack. The second hack is a deeper dive into choice itself. So you can choose suppression, you can choose expression. Now, once you understand that expression is the expression of you and your presence, then suppression, you can choose whether you wish to express your being, who you are and who you're being in a particular situation, or you wish to express your emotions. Now, the second hack is consequence of your choices, like choosing the consequence is the second hack. So every time we choose, and every choice is enacted. Okay, when you choose something and that choice is enacted, then it has a consequence. What if before you enact that choice, you just considered what is the consequence of this inaction? Or getting this choice into action? What is the consequence of that? And then declare that consequence as your choice. So if somebody says something and you get frustrated and you're just going to react back, expressing your frustration, just pause a little. If I did that right now, what's the consequence of that? I shut up the other person, or I instigate the other person to go even more aggressive. And then I say, okay, I choose to get attacked by this other person becoming very aggressive. I choose that. Then go ahead and take that action. It's your choice. You can choose anything. But just doing this, considering the consequence, and then making a conscious choice, even if the conscious choice is, I choose pushback. It is a choice that you have made. You have honored yourself. You are in a state of whole and completeness. Your emotional well-being is solid and strong. What I'm saying here is just every choice, there is a consequence of putting that choice into action. Before you take that action, consider what is that consequence and declare that you are choosing that consequence. Declare it to yourself. And then go ahead and act, because you will act. That's just so. Remember, actions and thoughts, everything is a vibration. Even if you think something really hideous about someone, you've actually anchored those vibrations in your field and in the other person's, and you've interrupted wherever it is that the other person may be. Or if you've got worry there about someone, then you're anchoring that vibration of worry in your field and in the other person's field. It depends on the state and the vibrational frequency of the other person, whether they receive it or not, but it certainly impacts your field. And that's what was happening with me when I was choosing not to express who I was, but just shutting off how I was feeling in those moments of being, abused.
And Asha just texted, she brought up a point that I think we talked about. Expressing doesn't mean to express in words or just acknowledge to yourself. Because expression, we were talking about that, and she was asking about that again.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. It's an acknowledgement. Look, emotion is a feeling. There are, and we put words to those feelings. But at a cellular level, you feel what you feel. So there are no words to that. We've given words to it. So yes, it is acknowledging. That is the way of really expressing within, but expressing out usually comes in the form of words. And what I'm saying here is the expression in the form of words, apply it to the consequence of the choice that you're about to make. And by putting words to that, you immediately stop yourself in your tracks from doing something really silly.
Manuel, I think also the timing is so big on your choices here. Like, when do I express? When do I hold back? Maybe I express later when things calm down. Like all of those things go into the choice.
Yeah, Dea, the thing is always consider, okay, if I express later, what's the consequence of that? Now, the consequence may be the other person, calms down. But what does it do to you? Okay, so really consider the consequence. Always bring it back to you, because ultimately everything begins from you and it ends with you. I'm not making you selfish. I'm actually making you self-aware so that you can share rather than, command and control through our emotional reactions. Ultimately, we are the one. If our emotional well-being is destabilized, we just project it onto the world. And the world is made up of lots of human beings, lots of connections that we have. That lack of emotional well-being within us is projected everywhere, and it reflects back on us, makes it even worse. So consider the consequence of it, and then choose the consequence. That's the key thing. If I express later, I'll have a lump in my throat for that length of time. Okay, I choose to hold on to the lump in my throat. That's fine. You express later. If I express right now how I'm feeling, having acknowledged it, and what I express it in a state. You see, when you express something that you feel dissatisfied about, you express it as a reaction, it has a very different response compared to you literally just setting the context and sharing that, this is the state that I'm in right now. And I would love for us to find a way of, co-creating a solution to this. Or, I feel deeply dissatisfied. That's the emotion I'm experiencing. And I want the space to myself. I don't want to continue our connection at this point. So, my request is we end it here. Very different than how dare you speak to me like this, and how dare you push me down, and I'm done with this. I've had enough. I'm going to walk away. You will never walk away from that. That is anchored in yourselves. Okay. This hack is a really powerful one. Consider the choice you're making. What is the consequence of that choice? And choose the consequence and declare that as your choice before you take action. Changes everything. Let's look at the third hack. The third hack is context before diving into the content of your expression. So in a relationship, this happens quite a lot, if you have children, and especially if they are older, like, in their teenage years or in their 20s or 30s, they make the choices in their life and they're getting on with it. And you can totally see, based on your own experience, where this is leading. And you so want them to, listen to you, what you have to say. And they are like, just back off, stop. Or they might even get upset or angry with you. And then you realize that, okay, maybe, they are an adult, I need to just back off. But deep down, you have that protection instinct and you so want to communicate with them. And you're not able to. Now, at that particular point, if you suppress, then like when I considered this for myself, there was a particular point where my children were in Berlin. My son was in Berlin with his wife and kids, and they wanted to move to Malaysia. This is right in the middle of the COVID experience that the world was going through. They wanted to move to Malaysia to have more space. They could do their business from Malaysia. There was no problem. Have a better lifestyle, quality of life. And I could actually see that Malaysia is not where they were going to go. And this was not a time where my son needed something that would amplify him, really propel him forward in a very powerful, energetic way. And Malaysia was not going to do it at this time. Malaysia would have done it in other times. But right now, during COVID, there was so much fear, and there were so many issues that would come in the way. There was no listening for that at all, So what he went ahead and he, set up a company and all that stuff he did. In the meantime, I had set myself up quite nicely here in Dubai, and I was moving forward with life here. And I remember, so I used this particular hack, but my emotional well-being was sort of affected by knowing something and seeing that he's not really taking it on board. He's seeing it as an interference or me somehow trying to control their decisions. And he wanted to be the one with his wife together, choosing what they did with their life rather than be driven by what their mom thought, which is fair enough, So I chose this hack, the setting the context before diving into the content of my expression. And what I did was I shared with him that my context is that they live a fulfilling life that is regenerative, a fulfilling life that is thriving, and that they thoroughly enjoy. And it provides a beautiful space for them to bring up their children and create their own harmony between themselves as well as, the work that they choose to do. And I'm a stand for that. That's the container in which I relate to them. And with that context in mind, I request you to examine Dubai as an option given that Malaysia is closed, come to Dubai for 3 months and see how you feel, how you find it. And you can, of course, go on to Malaysia from here when it opens. You've set everything up. You don't have to stay here. But if you feel it is good, then you come here and make your choice for yourself. Now, if I hadn't set the context, there would be no listening for this. I would have been shut up long before. And they would have remained in Berlin feeling, because Malaysia was not open, feeling that, they so wanted to go somewhere else. It would have been a point of regret. But this way, we were actually able to have a dialogue. And my son came here first to examine it for himself. And he was blown away by what the possibilities could be. They didn't immediately choose to stay here. They chose to come here for 3 months, exactly as I had requested. And the rest is history, as they say. So they are here. But that's the using of this hack, And it also means the expression. I didn't need to express how I was feeling. I really expressed how I was being in that situation. And that expression was, I expressed everything. I continued to experience that unequivocal flow of yumminess, even as I was talking about it. But when you suppress something or decide that I'll talk about that later, there's always a little bit of yuckiness that is always present. That's your cue that you're not in the realm of expressing who you are being. So let's look at the fourth hack. The fourth hack is trust. And this is about trust in your worthiness. And when you do that, you trust in your word. When you do that, others trust in your word. Trust in your worthiness is really reclaiming your connection to the dignity that you were born with. I would say, I would go as far as, the innate vibration of trust is a stake in the ground. Putting a stake in the ground. And when somebody puts a stake in the ground, you know the job is done. And when it comes to trust, it's directly related to your own honoring of your own worthiness. That is you honor your own worthiness, trust is the consequence of that. Because you immediately start trusting your word. When you don't honor your worthiness, there is a feeling of lack that continues to propel within you. And that lack that propels within you gets you to react in a whole variety of ways. And when you are reacting, emotional well-being is out of integrity. It's impacted. So trust your worthiness is this hack. When you trust, and that way you acknowledge your own worthiness, you know that you are worthy, you really start experiencing that whole and completeness in you. You don't have to make anything up. Even if 20 things within you may be some things that you can't tolerate, as you start looking at, well, I'm still here, what is it about me that is worthy? That's the question you're answering, not what is not. And you'll find, even if you find one or two things, the next day you'll find another, each of those multiplies. And as you start owning your own worthiness, you become more centered within yourself. You're comfortable in your presence. Your choice of words starts to change. So, just imagine with the example with my son that I just gave earlier on, if I had gone on about, really Malaysia is closed, Dubai is the place for you, and they would have had a pushback after pushback after pushback and accusations of something that I was not doing, which is you're trying to control our life. You're trying to command us again. You're pushing us around, which is not what I was doing at all, right? But if that is what kept happening again and again and again, it does impact your connection to your own worthiness. But by knowing that whatever occurred, I remain worthy because there's more than enough in me. The fact that I have life, the gift of life from our Creator, that in itself makes me worthy enough. And then I used the hack of setting the context before diving into the content. The consequence was very different.
Minu, sounds like it's effective communication is what you're talking about. How to really have effective, compassionate communication, where you're honoring the other person as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It happens automatically, So my thing here, what I wish to share with this, the human miracle, and this is the building block. The thing to remember when it comes to emotions, see, mind is, mental is about thoughts. Physical is what you can touch and feel. Emotions are more in your heart, right? And so it comes naturally, it just comes naturally. The feel of your feelings comes naturally. But if you make it mental about, okay, it's a process of communication, that also will help you, but you may not take it all the way into your heart. But if you really connect to what is the context, if I think about it mentally, what's the context about this? This is what I wish to achieve. Okay, that's the context. And then you speak about it, the other person may feel pushed. But then I go into, okay, from my heart, what is the context? My context is that my kids do live a fulfilling life, where they are thriving and they are sharing, and and we are all beautifully connected to each other. They're all operating from their source margin. That's really what I want. That's the context. That's where I'm coming from. And it just, you have a different response to it. So yes, it is communication, but except where it's coming from in the context of emotional well-being is your heart center. Okay. Unmute.
It's like that word compassionate communication, because it's a two-way, and you're honoring them. They're honoring, you're honoring yourself, and then you're honoring them.
So compassionate communication is perfect because that compassion comes from the heart. It's not a mental thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
That's what I call what I do, compassionate uncoupling.
Yes. So let's look at the next hack. The next hack is a very yummy hack. It's romance. It's really embracing, embodying romance. So romance is a lifestyle. And every lifestyle is a very personal lifestyle, right? As is romance, it's a very personal lifestyle. A personal lifestyle equals personal to you as the person, not this other person or other people. It's about you. So when you actually take on living a romance lifestyle, you immediately start connecting to that which enables you to feel unleashed, that which makes you unstoppable. And in that process, you literally start unbridling yourself. It's as if it's this romance lifestyle is the lifestyle that enables people to find their wings. A deep sense of healing actually happens when you adopt the romance lifestyle, because you can let your hair down, you can have a laugh because you choose to. And you know that you can do this. What happens here is the need to do something, have to do something, the must do, the should and should nots dissolve away. And you become the master of your choices. You become the cause in your matter. And because as a word which is attributing, a blame on something else actually changes, and you be the cause in your matter. That's what happens when you go into the romance as a lifestyle. So one of the ways to implement this hack is, and we've done a whole pearl of wisdom, I believe, on romance. I'll actually share my podcast on it, which is derived from the Pearl of Wisdom, 7 Flares of Romance. So it literally, you getting to be truly, madly, deeply in love with you, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. By acknowledging the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and choosing as a conscious choice actions that have you be in an unequivocal state of yumminess, you'll find over time, and it's often a very short space of time, the ugly and the beautiful, ugly and the bad literally just dissolve away. But by owning all of those aspects of you, acknowledging it for yourself, and then choosing to take action that makes you feel that unequivocal flow of yumminess, that is adopting the romance lifestyle. You're not afraid to express yourself, because every time you express yourself, you are in fact expressing who you are being. And when you're expressing who you are being, you feel your emotions, You don't project or dump your emotions on someone else. You feel your mental, you think whatever you think. You don't projectile vomit your thoughts on others. You're able to stay in the wholeness and completeness of who you are. And remember, who you are is whole and complete. There is nothing lacking, there is nothing missing, because deep down you are a soul being that desires for nothing and is here to have an expansive experience in your human form. And therefore, it is acknowledging your human form to be worthy enough to amplify and expand its soul presence. And we've already done several sessions to understand the human miracle. It's pretty amazing, our human form. So with that knowingness, you use this romance hack. Begin with acknowledging the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful in you. And then you can go into looking at the bad and the uglies and see if there is a story that you are holding true that keeps those expressions of uglies and the bads that you consider in place. You know, so in my case, when I did this, when I first did this, when I first started engaging with this romance as a lifestyle, I was looking at, one of the things that I thought was bad about me was, allowing myself to tolerate abuse by simply not feeling it. That was really bad. I didn't stand up for myself, it was bad. And what was ugly was, like allowing my physical health to deteriorate to such an extent that I didn't even like how I looked in the mirror. And there were many other things on the list, but if I just took those two or three that I've just shared with you, and there were many things that I wrote that I liked about me. my intellect, my ability to find optimism in any situation. I was a great problem solver and great converter of ideas into real businesses. So I could see all of that. And then I could also see what is beautiful about me was my ability to adapt to multiple cultures. And in moving forward, when I am actually adapting myself to new cultures, I start noticing the magnificence of those cultures. And even though I may not necessarily share anything about my culture initially, but it automatically starts to happen because I bring my creativity into play. So I thought, well, what if I did more of that? I feel an unequivocal flow of yumminess when I'm doing it. So what if I did more of that? And I started doing more of that. I, gave myself permission to travel without having to feel guilty, created an amazing infrastructure to support me because I had a young child and I was a single parent for a period of time to do that. But none of that would have occurred if I had suppressed all of this and not even acknowledged the ugly and the bad parts. I didn't focus on the ugly and the bad parts. I just focused on the good and the beautiful parts. And the ugly parts started to automatically dissolve. And I got into a space where I reconnected with my source mastery, and I started expressing that mastery to myself, leaving myself truly, madly, deeply in love with myself. And then I started doing it with others. It's happened naturally. And I was living this romance lifestyle. My expression of living an extraordinary life where all aspects of life coexist with ease, grace, and joy is the romance lifestyle. That's what it is. Now, along the way, there were deep wounds that had occurred as a result of, an extended period of abuse, which was all the time I had blamed it on this other person, but it really was self-abuse because I was allowing that to occur. It was nothing to do with the other person, because if I put a stop to it, it would have stopped. It stopped, right? I put a stop to it, it stopped. But I didn't stop it for 10 years. So it was self-abuse. That is like an even deeper level of healing that was required. Did all of that. But I couldn't have gone there even until I did the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, uncovered the big offenders, and chose to do that which gave me that unequivocal flow of yumminess. So I choose unequivocal flow of yumminess in my body, in the choice of actions I take. And I operate that way. So easy to know that you're there, or you have it or you don't have it. So it's actually quite a easy hack to implement. And of course, in the 7 flares of romance, there are 7 flares that you can actually go through and implement, but you don't have to complicate it too much. Anything you wish to say or add to this, Dea?
I love, well, I add juicy romance to my romance. I have picked words that really get, but I remember that the 7 flares of romance, it's so good. So I can't wait to listen to that one again. So if you share that, but yeah, romancing, it just feels good. The vibrational frequency of romance,
Yes.
So yeah,
And
it just,
where things go pear-shaped with romance is we put the pressure on a particular relationship, for us to feel romantic.
how
So
about
then
romantic with yourself is what you were saying. That's truly romance that we cultivate. And then when we go out, we feel the romance with everyone around us, sort of.
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah. As a lifestyle, it's a lifestyle that leaves you feeling unleashed, unstoppable, unbridled to express your truth. That's what it is. That's the lifestyle it is. But when you put the pressure of that romance on another relationship, then what's happening is initially it's all great, but then the pressure is felt on both sides. And the relationship becomes one of codependers. And there's a lot of resentment and regret and all sorts of stuff goes on. It's a very different dynamic. But when you actually embrace romance as a lifestyle for yourself, you actually become a very beautiful co-creator. And then in a relationship, you become a co-creator of that of the relating you wish to co-create. And you can both a romantic intimacy.
Yeah, I think that the depth of intimacy, and they always talk about focus on yourself and the romance with yourself and healing yourself. And then you have more to give in the relationship, and then it blossoms. So, and I love that. So the focus is always here, not out there.
Yeah, and just take the load off, from your relationship and relating. Because when you leave the power of romance onto the relationship, you've loaded how you're relating to one another. So a loaded way of relating in any situation it's like landmines.
Well, it's all those expectations you put on somebody else because they're not being a certain way and all those things,
Because you're not feeling unstoppable, unleashed, unbridled, but then you blame this other relationship. It's nothing to do with it. You choose the romance. That's the hack. Choose the romance lifestyle for you.
Perfect. Nice.
The next hack is unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance. This is a powerful hack for emotional well-being. Now, if you are feeling really charged up, right, and you're totally not feeling good at all, at that point to say, oh, just unconditionally accept will make you even more charged up. And I'm saying unconditional acceptance is a hack, and it is a hack because there's a process to unconditional acceptance. Telling someone to, oh, just unconditionally accept it, it's like slapping them on their face. It's like completely the opposite of empathy. But actually understanding where the other person is at. So unconditional acceptance, the process of unconditional acceptance is acknowledging. Begin by acknowledging whatever it is that is going on for you in the context of that which you're going to apply this unconditional acceptance to. Like for me, unconditionally accepting that this guy hit me for 10 years, hit his wife for 10 years, and blame me for doing it. I mean, it is not, how can I unconditionally accept it? I cannot accept it, let alone unconditionally accept it. But that gave me no freedom to break free from it. I was holding on to how badly done I was. And where would that have left me? Living a life feeling so burdened by my experiences in the past. And the past doesn't exist, neither do those experiences. But the energy signature exists in the form of this big, heavy weight in my field, weighing me down, preventing me from really soaring high and expressing the truth of who I am. But simply saying, okay, fine, I unconditionally accept all that is, that wasn't doing it either. But allowing myself, giving myself the time, taking what it takes. It took me 9 years living in Bali, going through all of my different spiritual awakenings to really get that unconditional acceptance of all that is around this particular aspect of my life. There was so much there to be right about. And I was so justified in it. lot of victory points. Wasn't helping me, was it? So I took the time and kept acknowledging how I was about certain situations, certain incidents that took place, how I felt about it, just gave myself the space by simply acknowledging how I felt in the moment, how I felt in that moment. Where in my body did I feel it? How did it impact my life? What could have been? That's how I discovered that regret was a big emotion that I was walking around with, and then until I got to a point that there was nothing else left to acknowledge about that experience in my life, I kept going, and I was only acknowledging within myself. That's when I declared, okay, I unconditionally accept all that is. And that was unleashing. I felt I could move forward. Until that point in time, that little bit of yuckiness about what had occurred in my life was always there. Now I can talk about this abusive relationship and all of that quite openly. Your level of abuse is very much a function of your own allowing of that. It actually is nothing to do with the abuser. And I'm not saying it as a lecture. I'm saying it because that was my discovery from having gone through this myself, that, oh my God, I was engaging in self-abuse. And that in itself brought emotional well-being in. Then I unconditionally accepted that in myself, gave me the freedom to move forward and discover my own magnificence, conscious of the time. So I'm going to the last hack. The last hack is the hack of sensory visioning. Visioning with your senses. This is what we call as VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So assuming you express the fullness, the whole and completeness of you, and all this suppression that you have done up to this point in time just dissolves away. Bring your sensory visioning on and envision what would you look like? What would you sound like? What sort of words would you be using? What would you be feeling like? Really describe it in its fullness, activating your audit, your visual senses, the looking side. Describe, are you smiling? Are you standing up? What clothes are you wearing? Everything. What's your wardrobe look like? Really vision, vision, vision. And then you go into what sort of words are you using? What do I sound like? And then you go into the feel of it, the kinesthetic part. Then you zoom out and look at others in your life and the world at large. When they look at you in this way, what do they look like? What do they sound like? And what do they feel like? And with that all coming together, you become whole and complete within yourself. And emotional well-being is your reality. This is the last in the series of emotional well-being. So over to you, Dea.
Wow, that was extraordinary, Minu. Wow. Those 7 hacks, all of them, each one of them, just so much there. So I'm just going to review them. The first hack was, remember, it's your choice. Second hack is the deeper dive into the choice. So really focus on that consequence of that choice. And then the third hack was another brilliant one. Context, the setting before the contact of expression, which really can make a huge difference in your delivery of compassionate communication. The fourth hack is trust. Reclaim your divinity with this trust. The fifth hack is embodying romance as a lifestyle. And the sixth hack is unconditional acceptance. And the very last hack, which you just spoke of, was a sensory hack. So with all those 7 together, I think we really can express ourselves and be emotionally free in our way of being. So thank you, Minu. It was really amazing tonight.
You're welcome.
All of us got a lot out of it. I sure did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I declare our session complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Minu.
Thank you.
Thank you.